I think it's real. I think we're live and everything is streaming. So I want to start out, if you don't mind, with just reading your bio because I don't want to miss anything or leave anything exciting out, and I'll welcome people. So I'm Jeannie DeVita from Romance Writing Academy. If you're watching us live, thank you so much for being here. You don't have to worry about background noises or pets or dogs. Nothing going on with you will interrupt us, but we would love if you'd engage in the chat. If you have questions or comments for us, please feel free to just tap away. So let me welcome our guest, Audrey. Hi. So excited that you're here. I'm going to read your bio for people. I'm sure people who are watching or who RSVP'd and plan to attend know who you are, but let's not leave out any of the good stuff.
Okay.
So Audrey Carlan, welcome. We love you. You are a #1 New York Times, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal bestselling author. I know. So excited. You write stories that help the reader find themselves while falling in love. Some of your works include the worldwide phenomenon, the Calendar Girl serial, the Trinity series, and the International Guy series. Your books have been translated into over 30 languages across the globe, and you are working on 2 series right now, one of the books we're here to talk about primarily today, which is Wild Child. So you do it all. Contemporary suspense. We're so excited.
Yeah.
You live in the California Valley. You enjoy your 2 children and your love of life. When you're not writing, you are teaching yoga, sipping wine with your soul sisters, or you have your nose stuck in a sexy romance novel.
All right.
Yay. So Audrey, welcome. Thank you so much. We're so excited that you're here.
I'm happy to be here. This is fun.
Yay! So we've already got some comments, so don't worry about those. I'll just pop up ones that we'll bring up for you to answer. But otherwise, let's just talk about you and your career to start. Just generally, like romance. How did you get into romance? Did you grow up like as a kid borrowing romance novels from moms, grandmas? Tell us about it.
No, actually, no. I'm kind of a late bloomer with it because I was a huge reader of suspense. And, you know, when you're a kid, you read, back when I was a kid, we read like the R.L. Stein and, you know, the Nancy Drew and all those. And I was like, oh, yeah, I want to figure out who done it. But my start, actually, my sister was very into literature. And so she would read to me at night under the covers with a flashlight. And it was things like Dickens and Austen. And so I kind of got the love of literature that way. And I just took it with me into my charitable world where I was doing charitable giving. And then I read 50 Shades of Grey. So, I mean, literally it was that late. And I didn't even read it when it came out. I read it like 5 years later.
Yeah.
And I read it through and I was like, read it again. And I read it all through again, all 3 books right away. Like I ended the page and was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I started it over again so I could like fully experience it again. And from there, I was like reading her bio, and she's a mom and she was in the corporate world. She was like, I think already 50 by then. And she's like, I want to write a story of my own. And I was like, I could do that. If she could do that, I could do that, you know? So that's how I started penning Angel Falling, my first novel.
Oh my God. So seriously, you didn't grow up like as a kid writing stories or thinking you could be a writer. It literally.
Well, I was excellent in English. Like that, I would like essays came so easy to me, book reports, all that. I was like, this stuff's easy. And I did do some like fan fiction and things like that whenever awesome shows were out. You know, I did that a little bit. But mostly it was just, I loved books and I loved to write in general. Like people would have me write their resumes and their marketing material or whatever. And so finally I was just like, you know what? I love reading so much. I have stories to tell. Let me try it out. And so I didn't publish my first book until I was like 34. So 41 now. It's been like 6-7 years. So yeah.
What a ride too in such a short time. But so do you mind if I just back up and like pick your brain about how that happened? So you read 50 Shades, you loved it, you read her story, you thought I can do this. What happened after that? Like, was it easy for you? Did you really understand what to do to be a writer?
No, absolutely not. So before I wrote, I published Angel Falling first. I actually wrote Body, which was later. I released that later. I was working on that for the very first novel. And I wrote it and then I sent it to my 2 best friends. And I had ended it, the first book instead of a trilogy. I ended it. And she's like, wow, that was a Scooby-Doo ending. And I was all, we're gonna have to think about this. So I sent it to friends and critiques, and I joined online writing schools. Like what this school is, everybody, for real.
Aw.
This is how you get practice. This is how you learn how to hone your craft. So if you're not taking classes, getting that criticism, you're never going to grow and you're never going to learn. I, back in the day, used, it was like Gotham's. Do you remember that? It was like out of New York. They had some online programs for a while.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
And
I
they
took
had those
some.
paper flyers. You'd see the
Yeah.
paper flyers too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you know what? That was, to me, having that ability to actually have people that were just like me, who didn't know what the hell they were doing, who were excited about writing, but didn't really know the ins and outs. You know, you shouldn't use these kinds of phrases to start a book. You really have to make a point, you know, end a chapter with something dangling. You know, it's like all these little tricks you didn't learn. So even if you're educated and you went to college, the odds are you didn't learn how to novel write. You might have taken a writing course or whatever, but it wasn't about being in the reader's mind and figuring out how to write to their interest. And that's something you learn on classes like these. So I did that. And then I had some authors that I loved and I read all their work and I would start feedback. I love this book because of this. So I used that as like practice writing. And I would write them these big, long feedbacks on how awesome their book was and why it was awesome. And then I asked them straight up, will you review a couple chapters of my book just so I could learn? And a couple did, and they made it bleed, man. And that's how you learn. I mean, the more edits you get, the better you're going to get. So yeah,
But you know
that's
what's
kind of
so
how it worked.
But you know what's so crazy is like you brought up all these points. Like I have an MFA in creative writing and I've learned, I mean, I love the program. I learned to teach. I learned a lot academically, nothing about writing. And everything that I learned about even being an editor was
Yeah.
just from doing it and
Yeah.
from the generosity, like you said, authors are willing to read your page, like the generosity of this community, specifically romance. I've never had someone reach out and say no, or reach out to me. And it's like, you know, the whole writing advice thing the hashtag that's going around Twitter right now, the hardest writing advice, best writing advice, worst.
Okay.
Like, you know, that sense that like we're all in competition with each other and we can't help you. Like you've never been that kind of a writer. As far
I
as
don't
like,
like that.
I
The whole
know.
competition, you know what, it takes me what, to read a book this size, 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. I mean, if you're a fast reader, but why am I in competition with someone else for a book? Like, there's so much awesome out there. I think my biggest issue with this industry is actually that people do not hire qualified editors. And that really is my biggest advice to every single person out there. First is hire an editor, a professional editor. If they look at your work and they're like, it's pretty good. Okay, well, great. Show me what you got. You know, give them tests. Like they should be willing to test your work and do a chapter or at least 5 pages and edit it and show you what you need to work on. And if they're not doing that, you're not getting the right editing. So it's like this market is saturated with so much work that's awesome, but it's really poorly done in the editing quality. And so it's like, I'm so picky about what I read. That's the only competition in my mind is if your book has a zillion errors in it, I can handle 10 errors in a book, whatever. But if your book is every page you're finding errors, that's not a good impression. And that's not something I want put out there for other readers either, because, you know, we work really hard and everybody should put their best foot forward, you know? So I would say that's my biggest advice is hire a professional editor. Second, if you're going to get a contract, hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 biggest things in this industry. Otherwise, there is no competition. You do you, boo. You know? Make it grammatically correct. That's all.
But was there anything that prepared you for that experience of being edited, or were you just like, I can't believe I have to change this, or you were so ready to absorb it? Like, how did you adjust to that process?
I think you have to let your ego aside because your ego prevents you from growing. And if you don't look at it from a perspective of knowing that person's heart and knowing that they're the expert, granted, you're not always going to agree. And there are things that we are going to disagree on all the time. And that's okay. But really, you should take every little thing under consideration. Most of the time for me, I'm such a cheater. I'm like, if If I get my edits, I literally skim them until there's a lot of red. I'm like, oh, let me read this part because the rest is probably right. She's got it right. I got it wrong. It's and commas. Those suckers are like glitter, like on my manuscript. So I have no idea whether they're accurate or not half the time. I'm just like, those things are sparkly. Put them here. All over. I would say. And it's weird. It's like, if you make it fun and you make it exciting, like every time I get an edit back, I'm always like, oh, I get to see what's going on. Like, what does she think? What's happening? I can't read. Oh, like, oh, girl. Oh, yeah, that was funny, right? Yeah, I love that. So I have like this ongoing conversation with my manuscript and my editor's comments where I'm just like, oh, yeah, oh, man, I can't believe I didn't catch that. And so if you just take it lightly, like, this person, you're paying this person to help you. They should not be hurting you, for one, because I've had editors that actually hurt my heart, and prevented me from wanting to work because they were like, you could do so much better here, or whatever. You've got to find that symbiotic relationship with the person. And you can typically tell whenever they do like a sample edit what their vibe is. And they need to understand you as well as you need to understand them and trust their judgment and vice versa. So you just got to let your ego go.
Do you ever hear that like little editor voice in your ear when you're actually writing and think, shut up, I want more commas, I'm doing this?
No, I learned back in school, when you pause, you put a comma. So this girl's writing, I'm like, oh, comma. And then sometimes when I'm editing it and Windows wants to take them out, I'm like, really? Are you sure?
You don't know me. I'm leaving that comma.
I'm gonna leave it. Guess what? Someone else will fix it.
Oh my God.
That's kind of how I roll with it. I'm like, yep. And then there's, everybody has that repetitive word syndrome is a huge thing. That's what I call it. Or flying body parts. We always have, his hands touched my face. No, they didn't. He touched your face with his hands. So it's learning. I feel like every edit job or every time I'm being critiqued, it's a learning experience to find something new to grasp. And hopefully that one thing will stick. I'm not going to guarantee it sticks on each manuscript because it changes pretty regularly. But you can learn like one thing each time you get an edit. And ideally, you take that one thing that was really a powerful moment, of an aha moment, and put it into your next work. So then that's one thing that the editor probably won't have to fix next time. So then you learn something else after that. Learning.
It's such a beautiful process. But how do you, okay, maybe I should back up. How do you start your day writing? So if, let's say it's not a revision day, it's not an edit, so you have nothing to worry about there. You're just sitting there for the muse. Is it, what is your process? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser?
I'm definitely a pantser. I don't really plot. I put pictures on my walls and I stick Post-it notes on their faces so that I can remember important features, because I'll forget. I feel like I'm a channel writer. So I just let the muse go. That's why I don't use music. I like silence. It's literally, I just let it flow. And I prefer to start every time writing sitting in front of a blank screen. I just feel like anything that came before might junk up my process. Yeah. So I typically, if I'm already in the middle of a manuscript, I'll just read the one chapter before. So then you're not sitting there editing, because you can get that, what is it? Edit to analysis to paralysis, right? Yep. You can just analyze all of your work before, and you're never going to keep writing. You're just going to keep editing. So I'm like, pay for an editor, man. You don't need to worry about that part.
Just get it out. Just get this.
Get it out. Get it on the page. Read it through after, like let your muse go. Unless you forgot something, but that's why I have beta readers.
Yeah.
They help me with things I forget. What was that colors of that guy's eyes? That's what happens when you're a pantser. You can't remember little features like eye color.
Exactly.
Just go back and check. That's why I put them on my wall. Literally, I'm going to show you guys. Just see?
Oh, yeah.
I literally put them on that wall. There's another one on that wall.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I'm silly. That's kind of my system for keeping track.
It's not silly. I mean, everyone uses different tools, and I think it's fun because I think people think you can't be a pro if you don't have this perfect habit and this perfect system.
Mhm.
And it's like, you've got pictures and Post-its, and that's what
Yep,
works. How many,
yep,
dozens of books later? But
exactly.
now do you start, and I'm getting so many questions, so I have to like
Oh, good. Yeah,
stop.
you can answer them for sure.
Well, I have to stop asking mine and start asking our comments. But when you start a new project, do you
Mhm.
start with a character? Do you start with a plot? Like, what motivates you to commit to that one story?
Normally, I have a like one solid idea. So for Wild Child specifically, it was I had the scene in my head, and it's something we learned whenever we were little girls back in I don't know, maybe it's California, maybe it's somewhere else. It was always check the back seat of the car before you get in it. And it's because there could be a bad guy hiding there. Well, in this book, there is a bad guy hiding there. And that scene was so prominent to me of how the characters would meet. It was like what people call the meet cute is when
Yeah,
the two characters meet for the first time. Mine really wasn't a cute meet.
it was like
I don't
horrifying.
necessarily do cute meets or meet cutes. I do like kaboom.
Kaboom, the kaboom meet.
It's a kaboom meet. So that scene was in my head. And so then it was like, okay, but this girl is very bohemian. She's all about sisterhood because I'm really focusing, like, that's one of the things in your career as you start growing. You've taken that book, you now have 25 books. You have to really think about what your messages are to the reader. And mine right now is really sisterhood and being there for one another and lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. And so I sprinkle that for sure within my stories and make it very prominent that lifting one another up is important and why. So I would say that I think of like the idea first of like one a meet cute or a scene in my head, and then it's like I go backwards. Who's the girl? Okay, who's the guy? Okay, so Joan is an FBI agent. Because at first I actually put this book on hold because of the whole Black Lives Matter, and he was a cop, and I was like, I just don't really feel like politically I want to get into that realm. And I feel like things that have simmered down a little bit. So I'm like, all right, I can be an FBI agent. It's a little bit outside of the norm. It's kind of like X Files, which I love X Files. FBI. I'm gonna ride my little Scully. But no, she and I like the girl being just this down on her luck, but also really positive and will work hard for what she wants. And she doesn't want these grand things in life. And I don't think all of us necessarily want grand things. We just want to feel good about the day we worked, get a good pay for a job we worked hard at, an honest pay, and we want to have a mate that greets us, maybe a fluffy animal. Just we just want the simple things in life are the best, and I just really wanted to focus on that in a traumatic scenario and how that all came about, and that's how Wild Child came.
Well, and that's something I love so much about all of your books and characters, because I think so many aspiring writers think this is like a perfect love story. So I want to put
Right.
these beautiful, perfect characters, but all of your
Yeah. Mine are
characters
very realistic.
they are messed.
I don't write sex that you can't have. The whole lifting a woman up like in the shower or something. Like, please. Unless you're a bodybuilder, you are not having that kind of sex regularly.
That's a request for Jonah in the epilogue. Like, let's just see him do
Yeah,
bodybuilding with Simone.
exactly.
Oh.
Exactly.
This is an awesome question. So I'm going to put it up here and ask you. This is from one
Cool.
of our attendees. How many drafts do you typically go through? So Wild Child, you
Wow.
write it. When do you think it's ready? Or how do
Okay,
you
I think there's two different versions of that question though, only because when you're starting out, there's a lot of drafts. When you've already experienced your world and you know what you want to write and you already have your voice, you already have your style, you have your editor in line, you're not as worried about things, because if you do something really crazy, your editor's straight up going to be like, what is this? Like, where did that come from? Like, how does this relate? Or we don't need this. And it's like, wait, what? I'm going to make you need it. I'm just kidding. You end up changing it. That's just the way it works. But it's in the beginning when I first wrote, I would say body. I wrote maybe 6 different versions of that book because it was technically my first. So many versions that it didn't even get published until my 4th. It was the fourth book I published. So it's like a lot of authors don't even publish their first novel, you guys. It's a lot of people have a book sitting in their cache and they're like, there's that. Not touching it anymore. It's nope. Learned from this guy. Now I can write. So don't be too hard on yourself if your first book isn't this amazing experience. You learned from it, and take that learning experience to the next title and then really focus on using those skills and gifts. So I would say now my drafts, I mean, sometimes I just write it as I go. And I mean, there have been circumstances where I didn't even reread it before it was edited. I'm like, she's going to make sure it's all right.
We got your back.
If you're on a schedule where you're writing, because sometimes, guys, I might indie publish 3 or 4 titles and then have a traditional title as well. Well, all those traditional titles had to be written in advance. So while I'm releasing, some indie books, I've got books that I'm working on for the publishing houses. So you could be writing 6 to 7 books in a year sometimes, and it's insane, and I don't recommend it. But once you get to that point, you might, sacrifice other things in your life to do that, just so you can get ahead and catch up, with your publisher, with your indie titles. Because in romance, like I said, there is no competition. They are busting out books. We are going fast because we got a lot of awesome stories to tell. We got a lot of readers wanting to read them. So you just got to find your system and your flow through it. But I would say if I was a newbie and doing a draft, I would definitely write it straight through. I would read it straight through myself and edit it. Then I would hire an editor to go through it once for content development and copyline edit. Then I'd read it again and fix all the changes. Then they would determine if it needed just a proof or another line edit before a proof. Because I have, in my publishing world, in traditional publishing, you have a lot of rounds with your editor. You literally go from content development is line edit is 1, line edit is 2, and proof is 3. And normally those are done by 3 different people. So they always find something else too in that process that's going to be fixed. So it's literally going to go through a lot of drafts. Expect it to change a lot, and just be really proud of yourself once you have that final product.
And when you started, did you feel like when you had that moment, I'm gonna self-publish? Because even 6-7 years ago, self-publishing was so different. It's come so far. Did you have a vision or plan, or you just thought, I am so excited I finished this thing, I want someone to read it? Like, what did you do once you finished?
I was so scared about trying to find a publishing house or an agent or anything like that. And honestly, I didn't believe in myself back then. So I chose self-publishing because it was the way that you wouldn't get rejected. So I have never, ever sent letters to a publishing house and been rejected because I didn't put myself out there like that. And then once I got big enough, through a publisher found me when I had released, I'd released 6 full-length novels, and I was on June of Calendar Girl when I first got published by a publishing house. Mm-hmm. And then it was like I did 2 years worth of titles for that publisher. And I never had to go submit to a publishing house. They found me at the time. And that still happens, guys. It really does. But if you want to go a traditional route, you definitely have to have the absolute best product ready to go. That manuscript needs to be completely edited, proofed, perfect. You should already even try to get some authors to read it and blurb it for you, because this industry is huge. And there are so many people vying for an agent's attention, a publishing house's contract, and they only have so many spots that they can release books in. They're not going to release thousands and thousands in 1 year of books that are new. They're going to do a lot of the same authors that people already want. So you're vying for positions that are small. And so self-publishing is an excellent option to do your own thing and try it, especially like Kindle Unlimited is so huge right now, especially with the pandemic. Everybody's using Kindle Unlimited. So there's a lot of different options, and it's just make sure your book is the best product you can.
And then that brings up the whole next step. And we have a question list too, so I'll put this one up. So let's say you've done that. You're like, best book I've got. I really want to get out there and just experience publishing. For you, it's definitely different now than it was 5 years ago,
Yes.
8 years ago. But how do you spread the word? Like, what did you do? Maybe how has it changed over time?
I feel like everybody, especially now, it can almost be easier to connect than it was back then, because back then there was a lot of traditional, and it was the
Yeah.
indie was just becoming its own thing. Now indie is so common that people don't balk at saying, "Oh, I'm, a self-published author." It's really normal. It's
Yeah.
fine. So I would say, to get yourself out there, the best thing is to get you out there. And that's what my agent is always telling me, "Audrey, you have to do videos. You need to do these things." I'm always like, "I just want to write books." She's like, "No, you got to put yourself out there, because people want to see a real person. They want to know you as well as what you write." And a little bit of that, what I did was, like I said, I would read authors' books and I would email them their contact or private message them on Facebook. And I would be like, "I love this book and this is why." And I would build rapport with them. And then it was like, "Yeah, I'm working on my own book, and they're like, "Oh, well, I can let you come in my group and, share it." Or you could say, "Hey, can I give away a free print copy,
Mm-hmm.
to your group?" And normally, first of all, authors always want to give their readers free stuff, but they don't always want to. Like, my rule is, if I haven't read that author, I won't give away stuff in my group, because if I can't vouch for it, I don't want to be spreading it out there with my audience until I know it's good. So I have a lot of authors in my hottie group, and if I haven't read their books, I'm not putting them out there. But if they want to say, "Hey, I want to give away a free print copy," I'm going to be like, "Sure, give those free print copies away to my people. They love it. They'll decide for themselves if they like it." So
Right.
it's connecting. You have to connect with the blogs. Read the blogs. You can't just expect people to want to help you. You've got to help them and help you. It's very much a kismet type situation. One hand washes the other kind of thing. All those analogies that I always mess up, or I rewrite, and then they're like not actually the analogy anymore. It's a totally different analogy. And you're like, "I don't know what this is." And I'm like, "I totally do. It's okay."
You just roll with it. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
it'll be all right. It's just fine. But yeah, so it's just a matter of, put yourself out there, talk to your readers all the time, do all the stupid platforms. I just got on TikTok. I'm really excited. I've done like 3 videos. I feel like I'm a pro. I'm not. I'm really not. One of my author friends is like, "Oh, you got music attached to your video? How did you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It just happened. It was magic." But seriously, share with your friends. Also, create a reader group. I have alpha betas, so I am an assistant. So I have my assistant who's connected to all the other assistants. And my assistant at first was free. Like, literally, my person helped me out all the way through until I could afford to pay her. And then it was, now she has a full-time job.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it, is like, help other people. If you've got your own book, you might want to be helping an author that you want to emulate. Maybe you want to help them out with their stuff so that you can grow your own business. Janet Aston became popular because she worked under H.M. Ward, and then H.M. Ward helped her figure out her own industry, And so a lot of authors have that. So you just got to be willing to put yourself out there, man, every time.
I know. And that's what I think a lot of aspiring authors don't realize is it's so hard to break in, but then once you're in, there's so much to do. And it's fun, but it's also really demanding, like balancing the time. Like, is that something that you're good at or you're struggling with? Like, how do you spend enough time doing all this other stuff that you can
I'm not gonna lie. My assistant, who's on the film right now, that says TikTok Rockstar. That's Gianna. That is my assistant. She's like, "Woo woo." You know why? Because she doesn't have to do it yet. So we have like this system where I always say I play on social media. She does the work of it. I play on it. So part of her job duties is to share content on my Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook author page. I have an author group. So the more you get socially connected, the more freaking work it becomes. And in the beginning, you're going to be sacrificing a lot of time with your family. You're going to be sacrificing sleep. It's all about how much work do you want to put in to build your dreams. And I sacrificed so freaking much in the beginning, you guys. I can't tell you how many birthday parties I missed or how many family get-togethers because I was like, I work 8 to 5. I have to do this stuff on the weekend. I have to do this at night. So and then when you get to the point where you're more popular, you get to have people like Gianna who can do those things for you. And then you go on and show the personal side of you. I'll do some videos. I'll post about how excited I am about a book I read. And the rest is there, though. She's already put up Wild Child links. She's already put up, Soul Sister novel links, and she's updating my website. So it's like all these things you had to do by yourself, and you will until you get there, or you find some help with your beta readers, help keep things going. You just got to build your team, and Team AC is what we call it, Team AC. It's awesome, and it's like a sisterhood. So I try to give back to them as much as they give to me.
And I bet that helps when like the muse kind of slows down and you're feeling that like insecurity or anything like that. We have a question here about that too, which I think is awesome. I'm just going to pop it up. Do you recommend using beta readers in the editing process? So are you using betas early? Are you using all the way through? How does that work for you?
In the beginning, I only used my best friends because I was so scared. And I wanted people to go, I love this book. It's amazing. But you know what? If your best friends aren't telling you your book is amazing, they suck. You need new best friends. So you get new best friends that way. But beta readers, they're to me, and I don't know about everybody else, to me, there's 2 different type of beta readers. There's beta readers who read after the book is completely done and edited, and they give you their feedback, almost like a blog review or an ARC review, which is advanced reader copy. When you see the words ARC, it means advanced reader copy. Or advanced review copy, depending on what you're doing. But I have what I call alpha betas now.
Yeah.
They're super alpha too. They are very committed to my stories. And I write a chapter, I send it to them in draft format, not edited. I most of the time don't even read it through. I'm just so excited to send it to somebody. I'm like, I did this, check me out. And they read it, the 6 of them read it, and they respond via email, whatever they're feeling, whether it's they're excited or they're happy or they're thinking, Jonah's a sexy hunk, or they're like, oh, I love Simone, or oh, she's kind of, I don't know. And they'll tell me all that. And then they highlight lines that they really liked so that I know next time for teasers and things like that moved them. Or they'll tell me, I need more, whatever it is, it gets me excited personally. And they do find errors, and I mostly go back and fix those. But I have an editor. So I don't use beta readers as editors because they're not trained professionals. They are not there to find the errors. They are there to enjoy the read and find holes in the plot, holes in the personality, things that don't add up. Those are things that my beta readers bring to my attention pretty regularly. They also try to guess who done it in my mysteries. And what's nice that you're writing it while they're reading, you can change it. They figured it out too soon. I'm like, Gianna, we got to talk. We got a problem. The beta readers already know who done it. They know what the conflict is. They've already figured it out too soon. And I'm like, oh, no, we got to go back.
How do you keep track of all the elements when you're writing suspense if you're not a plotter? Like I would have to have like, oh my gosh, like the romance charted out, the suspense.
I just, I think that if you figure out, there's these books that I think everybody should get or at least look into is the GMC, the Goal, Motivation, and Conflict. I believe it's, I want to say her name, what is it, Claire Dixon or something like that? Claire, it's called Goal, Motivation, and Conflict, the GMC of writing. And you have to figure out what every character's goal is, every character's motivation, every character's conflict. And that's for every single character, you guys. Don't just say, oh, this is my heroine's problem throughout the whole book. That's cool, but what's up with the dude? What's up with her girlfriend? What's up with the plot? What's the plot? What's the whole reason for this story? If you don't know what the whole reason for that story is, you're not going to have a good book. It's just not going to happen. So always, every time if I keep those things prevalent about my characters, what their goals, motivation, and conflicts are, that leads my journey through the story. And normally the suspense angle it depends. Like in Wild Child, there's a serial killer and she happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that could happen to anybody. Not that you're going to happen to you. I'm just saying it could. But don't think about it. Just check the back seat of your car.
Right, just
don't get in your car until you look at the back seat. But on top of that, the biggest motivation and goal for this book as well. See, I also put it to the book. What's the book's goal, motivation, and conflict? And it was to show sisterhood of all types, family of all types, to find love in unusual circumstances. These are all ongoing threads in your book. And when you figure out what your threads are, it's going to come together really well. And just keep it honest.
And that's so exciting to me that you talk about the problems, because like I said, so many writers starting out feel like, well, I'm just here to tell the love story. I just want the love. But like romance novels got so much more than just that love.
There's no love without life being lived. Exactly. You got to live life. That's the only way you're going to experience it. And if you can't connect to your readers that are realistic in a realistic way, they're not going to connect to your book. And sure, there's the fantasy books with alphas extraordinaire and they're the best and they're raw and gritty, and those are fun too, and those are quick reads and those are great. But if you want a story that's going to sit with your reader and they're going to remember who the character is, first of all, most of the time, don't give them hard names. Like too hard are not like, what did I read a book? I think there was a book with somebody named like Persephone, and I'm like, I can't even spell that. That's a really hard name. But I mean, I will say I did remember it. So there's that. But so don't make it like, if you have a name that's hard to spell, unless you're in PNR, which is paranormal romance, PNR, or fantasy, then ideally just don't put too many names that are hard. Also, don't make everybody the same letter name, because you're going to forget who's who when you're writing it. So if it's John, Jonah, Justin, Jax, Christy Bromberg told me that trick. She's like, girl, last time I ever make all the characters with the same initial, because it is so hard to remember and not forget. Which tiny little feature that you got to put into your work to keep it accurate.
And do you find yourself ever reusing names? Like, wait a minute, I have like 22 Jonas.
No, Maxwell. Maxwell are my biggest repeaters. And I actually have what's called a character Bible, and I recommend every single person in the universe that writes do this. It will prevent you from having a lot of trouble later. But a character Bible is where you list every character, every single one. I actually pay someone else to do it. Yeah. It's so hard. Yeah. Junana does it, my assistant normally, or one of my betas will do it. And it's like this book, you have literally 9 women, plus a daughter, that's 10. Then you've got the 2 guys. Then you've got all the side characters they met, or the people that died, their names. So it's like, you've got this huge list. So you need to list what the name you use and do it in an Excel spreadsheet, first and last. Don't put them together, because you won't be able to search them easy. First and last. Then I put characteristics like hair color, age, job, nickname. And that I keep so that whenever I need to look up a name, I go see, oh no, I used that 5 times. But Maxwell's my big one. That's how I learned to do the character Bible, because it was like, my betas were like, man, you sure like the name Max? I was like, what do you mean? Like, I got a kitty named Max. They're like, you use it regularly. I was like, well, I guess if I had another boy, I would have named it Max.
We had that comment too, Max Kitty.
Yes. That's like my favorite name for some reason. I don't know.
So when you plan a series then, so like Wild Child, there's all the sisters and they all had personalities and names from day one. Yeah. Did you start that series knowing like this is going to be about sisters? I'm going to develop all these characters, and so you had a series plan?
Yeah, I had a series plan. Typically, I always start with a series plan. If you're going to write a series versus a standalone, that is huge. If you plan a universe like the Soul Sister universe, it can be small or it can be ginormous. Well, when you've got 8 foster sisters, it's going to be huge if you choose to write all of those books. We'll see. I'm guaranteeing 3. But it's like you have to know what every single one of those characters' goal, motivation, and conflict is. And if you don't know that when you're starting book 1, those characters are going to seem disingenuous when you're writing them in their book or in another book. So, and sure, those characteristics grow, but I printed all of their pictures before I ever even typed one word on the page. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, I want to do this many sisters. I wanted to make sure I had a lot of diversity. So I have two sisters that are blonde, blue-eyed, beautiful girls, but I also have a plus size model. I have a African American woman. I have an Asian woman. I have a Hispanic woman, and then I have a mixed race. I have someone who's bisexual. So it's like I personally wanted to have the gambit of what is in real life to me.
Mhm.
What is in my life, Cali girl? These are the types of faces I see, and I
Mhm.
want other people to connect to that. So I had to put what are their conflicts going to be? I need to know in the future that these people came together in what way. And so the foster sisters was the way that I brought these people together. And that's a big thread, again, through the series and what they go through individually. They have that little connection. So if you're going to do a series, plan out enough of it that you have a good basis for your characterizations, I think is really important.
And so when you planned out this series with all these sisters and you had all their amazing backstories so they could fit their roles in the first one,
Mhm.
do you plan each one then to definitely be a suspense? This is a suspense series. Or would you mix it up midway through and say, we're going to get rid of the serial killers and just have some other hijinks?
Yeah, I think that I don't really plan out every single detail. So I planned out how they came to the foster home at what age. So I
Mhm.
knew how they grew up together.
Right.
And so some of them, I don't even know what's going to happen to them. I'm not sure yet. I have like some generic ideas, like definitely want a house fire situation in one of them and things like that. So maybe a burglary, I like that. So I might do suspense throughout it just because it's fun. And right now I feel like I need some fun in my writing career. When you're stuck at home, you need to dream up some crazy stuff. So that for me it became suspense because of Wild Child. And it wasn't really meant to be that way, except for my assistant was like, man, I really wish you'd write another suspense like the Trinity. Trinity is the only
Yeah.
true suspense that I wrote that was
Mhm.
all about suspense. And she loves like Criminal Minds. And so I'm calling this series like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants meets Criminal Minds. It's all jacked up. Read it.
It's a perfect description. It's how do you keep like it from getting too heavy? Because I've obviously read it and loved it, and Simone is so fun, and it's never like I never feel like I'm reading a police procedural. There's just
Right.
enough. It's not too heavy. It's not too
Mhm.
like. Do you research? Do you just make a decision like no blood, but I will,
Right. I
fade
do
to
have that little thing like I will kill people off, but it's like it can't be too gross. So I'm like, okay, Janana, in Criminal Minds, what do they do whenever they do this? So I research with people who actually really follow along with stuff like that. And I'm like, is this too common? I don't want to give them cement shoes. That's been in every mafia book for all time. So I'm not going to do something cliche. I want it to be unique and different. And that's really important. But I don't want it to be too gross that people are like, I can't read this anymore. It's freaking me out. But
Right.
it's got to have a little bit of shock value if you're writing suspense. You want them to be intrigued. You want them to be like, oh my, oh no, what's going to happen to her? Is she going to get hurt? Oh, snap. And sometimes I hurt someone. I'm like, okay, I want to hurt this character, but not too bad. So what is livable?
Exactly. What
I'm
did she
not
bounce
a
back
big
from
fan
real
of,
quick?
of like, I don't like to read about books where girls get raped or anything like that. So I might say they were raped, but that never occurs in my books. So I ain't writing that. you know?
Exactly.
I
No
have my
trigger
own
warnings.
limitations on it. You've got to know yourself and know your heart and what you can handle and what can make you sleep at night. And you also, I don't read Stephen King only because he scares the hell out of me. So I don't want to scare the hell out of my readers. I'll watch his
Exactly.
movies, but I ain't reading the books.
And don't you want to be one of those authors, and I think you are, there's no doubt, that people just reread the book because it feels so good. Like the
I hope
character.
so. I hope so. I mean, I feel like it's really important in my personal style is to always leave life lessons. And
Mhm.
not that I'm like this, perfect life or anything, just that I feel like as a woman, a lot of times we're being pushed down and we're not thinking very highly of ourselves or each other. And I want to show that there can be, you too can be like these sisters. This is not unreachable. If you treat your best friends, your sisters, your neighbors, all of that, literally like the way you want to be treated and like they matter, they're going to treat you in return that way. And that's really a big message through all my books. Plus, it's okay to not be okay. There's a lot of people that are going through so much right now. And if you're depressed, if you're having trouble getting out of bed, I get it. I get it. I'm a writer. Like, I can't write if I'm sad. So it just depends on what you're living through and going through is what you should be writing, I feel like. Because if you try to, like, if I tried to write Mafia, it's not going to work because I might be Italian, but no, I'm not going to write that. I'm going to read books that already do that well because that's not my gig. So figure out what your gig is. What makes your heart excited? What is it you like to read? What is it that you find interesting? Those are all things that I write about. It's what I find joyful.
So, Audrey, you don't worry about, say, for example, like what the market's doing, like, oh, we can't do vampires anymore. You should be.
I did with the cop. I did. I waited for Wild Child because of that. But I felt like that was a really important moment in our history that we needed to be mindful of. And I wrote Love in Her Quarantine with Kylie Scott. And we did that solely because we were going through hell, just like everybody else. And we couldn't focus on these beautiful, crazy, amazing love stories when we're so sad about everything that's going on and we're in lockdown. And so we wrote that book in like 3 weeks, as you know. It was like blasted through. And for me, it left my imprint during that time in my life. That's something that I'm proud of because it left my imprint. But I would say I'm really bad at following trends because typically, like I said, I am writing a traditional book that's due a year from now. I have 2 books that are already done that are sitting there until January and March of next year, of 2022, guys. It's so crazy. But so they may be relevant then in the trope. They may not. I'm really bad at tropes. And I think that if you want to make a lot of money fast, for sure, definitely write trope, write whatever is hot. If you are that fast and that good and can edit it that quick, there's no reason not to make good money. But if you write because you have to write what's in your soul, it's a little bit of a different situation. So, and I hate fitting in boxes. I don't feel like fitting in boxes is my thing personally. I want to blow the box up and say, oh, why not read a suspense serial killer with sisterhood? Let's do it. Let's try that. Let's write about an escort that travels the world and chooses when to have sex with people. And then, whoa, okay, let's make that a bestseller. I didn't know that was going to happen. I just wanted to have a little fun with a girl, That's what it is. Have fun with your writing. If you're not having fun, if you're like toiling over it, I mean, if you're going to be the next, Dickens, then you should be working really, really hard and focusing on every little word and every detail. I'm not going to do that. I'm not rewriting literature. I'm writing something fun, entertaining, exciting, and it's to truly escape whatever you're dealing with. It gives you that little, like a friendship. It's like visiting a friend's house, You go to their house, you have a great time, then you go home. It's the same thing. You're visiting this world, you're on vacation with them, you're having a vacation, you're going through their stuff, and then you go back to your real life. That's my theory anyways.
And do you read when you're writing, or does reading other people's work feed the muse, make the muse feel?
I have to read in order to write. It's always a necessary thing. I have to be in that zone. It does feed my muse, but I don't usually read in the genre that I happen to be writing in. So if I'm writing suspense, I'm not reading suspense novels at all because I don't want to be invested in their story and my own and it get mixed up in my head because I am a pantser. So I have to really be protective of what their story is and what my story is and keep those two apart. I do a lot of rereading when I write because you already know the story. So it's not like you have to think about it. You don't have to try to figure out who done it. You don't have to try to figure out anything. You just enjoy it. And I love to read outside of genre. So if I'm writing suspense, I'll typically read like paranormal just to be fantastical and so crazy and it's nowhere near my world. And that works for me.
Oh my gosh. And what about like once you release a book into the wild and
Mhm.
people are reading it and reviewing it, like do you follow your reviews? Do you care about that reader engagement? Do readers reach out to you the way that you used to reach out to other authors?
They do. I have my information posted so that people can contact me directly. But I would say Goodreads is the place where authors go to die. If they if you want to really feel pain, go read the reviews on Goodreads on any book you love. They are going to be so all over the world. It's like people have this, freedom to say whatever the heck they want, and they use it, and that's okay. They can do what they want to do. They read the book, they have their opinions, great. I don't find it very kind. So that's why I always say, and sometimes I do these things, authors reading bad reviews, because it's kind of fun. I should do one. That'd be hilarious. I'm going to do it on Wild Town. I'm going to find some negative reviews and I'm going to read them out loud and respond to them. I like to have my kids respond with me because they get so defensive. Like, that wasn't nice, Mom. But people are people. So I do read a lot of reviews. And if I see a 1-star, I immediately read it because I'm like, what did they find? It's, there was too much sex in this novel, or she cussed too much, or I don't like when a girl is too big, and you're like, I don't like your thoughts on that. So it's okay. But if you don't have a thick skin, definitely don't read your reviews. You can even have them filtered. I used to have Janana filter my reviews to me. And so now she shares really good ones. She's like, ooh, look what this blog had to say. And I was like, oh, yay. And I'm like, but I was on Instagram and they said the character was boring. She's like, well, I'll delete that. Whatever. It's like, you know what? These things affect the way you see yourself. And it's so hard. We're only human. It's so hard to not. But there are certain things you just have to let go of. And readers' opinions are one of them. You're going to go through a painful process. And every single one of us has to. I feel like you're going to look at the reviews anyway, especially if you're new. You're going to get past it. And then you're going to be like me, where you find it funny. When they say something crazy, you're just like, where did they get that? I don't know, but all right. I didn't like the header on this. Okay, so am I firing my formatter? No.
I know. That is the craziest thing, because you think you put so much love and care into the story, and then people pick up on typos and like they don't like your cover, and you're like, all valid criticism, thanks for sharing, but you took the time to write a review about it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, okay, my biggest pet peeve, and I will tell every single author, you're going to get this. You will get typos and stuff in your manuscripts. I've read 50 Shades like 7 times, and I could tell you there are 6 errors in that book. There's 6. 9 saw every one of them. But you know what? I don't care. I love that book. So there's always going to be, I have editors. I have 6 beta readers. I have a whole ARC team of people who review my stuff before it ever even releases. And guess what? There's still errors. It's just life. Life is full of mistakes. If you can't accept them, move on. We're never going to be perfect. You are never going to have the perfect book. But emailing an author and telling them that they misspelled a word or they used the wrong name, it's like, first of all, I love that you care that much. But the fact that that book is out there on every platform under the sun, do you have any idea how hard it is to change? For one thing, never happened. I'm like, I'll deal with the errors.
We're leaving that comma.
It's not perfect.
Exactly. That comma is too sparkly. We're not taking it out.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk, because we're getting so close to time and I don't want to keep you over. I really want to talk about what you're writing now. What are you working on?
I'm actually working on Wild Beauty, which is the book after Wild Child. Yeah. And the first book, Wild Child, featured one sister. She has one blood relation, and the rest are all foster sisters. And so now I'm focusing on another foster sister, because in the end of this particular book, her journey, the other foster sister, her journey was a little bit more prevalent. And so I'm now shifting to that sister. And she is a full-figured plus-size model. And she has an amazing face. We're releasing the cover on February 8th. The book releases April 5th. And basically, She went through some trauma in the first book. And so this is her dealing with her trauma, as well as the fact that she was hurt in a way that affects her job. You know, when you have scars and things and you're a model, how do you deal with that? How do you start your life back up? And so she connects she connects with a photographer that was a photojournalist who was a Pulitzer Prize winning from wartime. And so he comes back and all he wants to do is focus on taking pictures of beautiful things, because all he saw was war and death and darkness. And even though it made him famous and popular, it kind of tore a little bit of his soul away.
Yeah.
And so now he needs to rebuild that. That's his conflict. So her conflict is, okay, now I'm disfigured in a way that I never thought before. Plus she was orphaned and she has this whole group of sisters that are there to back her up. And on top of all that, it's a suspense. Someone's trying to kill girls that look just like her. Oh. That's how it starts. I mean, it literally, chapter 1 starts with her being picked up by the FBI because there is another body. This one looks exactly like her and has a picture of her in the dead girl's crumpled hand. So from a magazine. So it's pretty intense, but it's fun. It's way more fun to deal with different issues. You know, Simone and Jonah had their own problems. Jonah had an ex-wife that cheated on him, so he was commitment phobe. She was just kind of lost, trying to work herself to find some kind of happiness. And they got embroiled in this really interesting case. But in Addison's situation, she's already at the top of her career. Now it's being threatened by the tragedy she went through. And she's meeting a man who believes in her and sees her heart and wants to help her through it, as well as get help from her through his demons. So yeah, it's fun and it's interesting. It's definitely what I can't wait for everybody to see it.
I can't wait either. Are we going to see Simone and Jonah?
Definitely. Yeah. You're going to see all the sisters, the mom, the foster mother. I try to do that with each world. Make sure you're learning a little bit more about each sister, but also exposing the next one. So I think the third book will probably be Blessing, which is an African-American woman whose dad is a gangbanger, essentially. Her real dad, but that's why she's in foster care, because her mom was murdered. And these are all women now, so that's what happened to them in the past. But she gets connected to a law enforcement officer, and she's like, I can't be with a man who's in law enforcement because Mike's a gangbanger. So it's a whole interesting thing. You get to learn little bits about each sister and root for them. So it's kind of fun.
Audrey, and honestly, I know golden romance is a thing, but I want Mama Kerrigan to get a love story. She needs to have.
Maybe I've been thinking about weaving in maybe a little person, you know,
Yeah.
just to see, because she's like only 60 and she's beautiful and loving and she's just so giving. So we'll see when her chicklets are all put together. We'll see if they hook her up with someone, or maybe someone's dad, you know, like their man's dad would be fun. So definitely.
Oh, that would be sweet. That would be sweet. Well, Audrey, I think people know how to follow you. I'm not sure if we have any other things we want to put. I've put up, so if people want to follow you, they know to follow you on social. You've got all the reader groups and you engage, and especially TikTok. I'm going to get on TikTok just to follow you at this point.
Yes, I'm new to TikTok. I have like 350 people only, but I don't care. I love every single one of them.
I cannot thank you enough for doing this. It is so fun to talk to you. I adore you.
Like I said, sign up for Romance Writing Academy. If you want to write, this is where you go to do it. Not only is Jeannie a creative writer and teacher of creative literature, she's also an editor. She's my editor, personal editor. So she does all my #1 titles. And this is something you guys need to do. It's not too expensive. If you want to write, you need to put in the effort. You need to sacrifice a little bit. Do your studying, do your training, learn some of these things. Learn what novel writing is. Learn how to develop characters. Learn how to develop plots. Learn how to plot. See if you like that. A lot of people do. You know, it's definitely important if you want to write to get a little bit of education under your belt. You
are now our new spokesperson. Thank you so much.
I will all day, every day.
Audrey, thank you so much. I love you. I love talking to you. And more than anything, I love your book so much. So thank you for spending time with us and sharing everything that you are working on and doing. can't wait until Wild Beauty. I'm so excited.
And everybody share this video, and I'll pick a winner for a signed copy of Wild Child. Because they can share it afterwards, right? We're going to have it up on the platforms. So
it'll be posted.
Win a copy of Wild Child.
Thanks, Audrey. You're amazing.
Love you all.
Love you. Thanks everyone for attending. We appreciate all your comments.
Thank you.